Chapter 3. Healing for Hell. One day I saw with my ray a lonely old woman working on her garden plot. Anastasia began. She was sprightly, slim, and always cheerful. She caught my interest right away. She had a very small plot and a lot of different things growing in it, and they grew very well because she tended them with love. Then I learned that the old woman would put everything she grew into a basket and take it into town and sell it. She tried not to eat the early fruits of her labors, but sell them when they would still fetch a high price. She needed the money to help her son. She had given birth to him late in life, and soon afterward she was left without a husband. Her relatives never communicated with her. Her son liked to draw as a child, and she had dreams that he would become an artist. Several times he tried to get in someplace where he could pursue his studies. Finally, he made it. And once or twice a year he would come to visit his elderly mother. These visits were the highlight of her life, and each time she would save up her money and prepare a whole supply of food for him. For his visit approached, she would pack vegetables into glass jars, put their lids on tight and give the whole supply to him when he arrived. She loved him very much and kept dreaming about her son becoming a top-notch artist. She lived on that dream. The woman was kind and cheerful. Then for a while, I did not watch her. The next time I saw her she was very ill. She had a hard time bending over to work on plantings. Each time she bent over, a sharp pain ran right through her body. But she proved to be very resourceful. She made her beds long and narrow. Each time she went out to her plot she would take with her the seat from an old stool, minus the legs, and use it to sit on while she did her wedding, and that way she was able to move around the whole plot without having to bend over. She dragged the basket along on a string. And she was looking forward to a good harvest. It really looked as though the harvest that year would be quite plentiful since the plants felt her state of mind and reacted accordingly. The woman sensed that she would soon pass on, and to make things easier for her son, before she died she bought a coffin and a wreath and made all the funeral preparations. But she still wanted to bring in one last harvest, and prepare the winter's food supply for her son before she died. I did not pay much attention then to why she was still sick even after such close contact with the plants. I thought perhaps it was because she herself ate almost nothing from her plot. She sold what she grew and then used the money to buy things she needed on the cheap. I decided to help her, and one night when she lay down to sleep I began warming her with my ray, removing the pains from her body. I could feel some kind of resistance to ray, but I still kept on trying. I did this for about 10 minutes until I succeeded in healing her flesh. Then, when grandfather came, I told him about the old woman. And I asked him why the ray had met some resistance. He thought about it, and then told me I had done the wrong thing. It made me very distraught. I began asking grandfather to explain why. At first, he did not say a word. Then he said, "You healed the body." I was amazed. "What harm could you have possibly brought to the woman's soul?" I asked. Anastasia sighed and went on, "The woman's health got better and she did not die. Her son came to see her earlier than usual. This time he came only for 2 days and told his mother he had quit his studies and did not want to be an artist anymore. He was now involved in some other work that brought in more money. He had got married. Now he would have a lot of money. And he no longer wanted her to prepare those insipid food jars for him, since transporting them would now cost more. "You can eat better yourself, now, mother," he said. He left without taking anything. That morning the woman sat on her porch, looked at her plot, and her eyes were filled with such emptiness and depression they looked as though she did not want to live. You see, her body was healthy, but it was as if there were no life left in it. I saw, or rather felt, the terrible emptiness and hopelessness in her heart. If I had not cured her body, the woman would have died at the right time. She would have died peacefully with her beautiful dream and hope intact. Now here she was, still alive, but in great despair, and this was many times more frightening than physical death. 2 weeks later she passed on. Chapter 4. A confidential conversation. I realized, Anastasia continued, that physical disease is nothing compared with mental torments, but at the time I was not yet able to treat the soul. I wanted to know how I could do this, or even if I could do it at all. Now I know it is possible. And I found out something else, that physical diseases appear in man not just as a result of his self-withdrawal from nature around him, and not just as a result of the dark feelings which he allows himself to take in. They, the diseases, can also be a means of warding off or even deliverance from considerably greater torments. Diseases are one of the devices or means of communication between the supreme intelligence, God, and man. Man's pain is his pain, too. But it could not be otherwise. How else could you get the message, for example? Do not keep throwing into your stomach all sorts of harmful stuff and not to listen to words of reason, after all. That's why the message comes through pain. But instead, you swallow painkillers and go back to stubbornly doing your own thing. So, I countered, it follows then, in your opinion, that there's no need to treat people at all? No need to help them with their ailments? Help there should be, but first of all to gain a proper understanding of the origins of the disease. Man needs help in discerning what the Supreme Intelligence, God, desires to say to him. But that is a most difficult task. One can make mistakes. Pain, after all, is a confidential conversation between two beings who know about each other. Interference from a third party often harms man instead of helping him. Well, why then did you rid me of my diseases? I asked Anastasia. Does that mean you've harmed me in some way? All your diseases will come back to you if you do not change your lifestyle, your attitude to things around you, and to yourself. If you do not change some of your habits, they are the causes of your diseases. I have done no harm to your soul. It became clear to me that it would be impossible to persuade Anastasia to make money out of using her healing abilities until she had sorted things out for herself. My business plan had fallen apart. Anastasia must have noticed my irritation, for she said, "Do not be upset, Vladimir. I shall try to grasp everything as quickly as possible. And now, if you really want to help others and yourself and not just make money, I shall tell you about the means by which man can cure himself of many diseases without undesirable side effects, as might happen when outsiders try to interfere in his destiny. If indeed you want to listen to this. What choice do I have? I'm not going to change your mind, in any case. Tell. There are several main causes underlying the diseases of the human flesh, namely, harmful feelings, emotions, an artificial dietary regime, an unnatural meal schedule and food composition, the lack of short-term and long-term goals, and a misapprehension of one's essence and purpose in life. Positive emotions, a variety of plants, and a reappraisal of one's essence and purpose in life. All these are capable not only of counteracting diseases but also of significantly enhancing one's physical and mental or emotional state. As far as bringing back, under the conditions of your world, man's lost connection with plants, I have already told you about that. After man has established direct personal contact with these plants, it is much easier to make sense of everything else. The ray of love, too, is capable of curing many diseases of one's fellow man and even prolonging his life by creating around him a space of love. But man himself, once he has managed to arouse positive emotions in himself, can use them to extinguish pain and cure the diseases of the flesh, even the effects of poison. What does that mean, arousing positive emotions? I queried. How can one think good thoughts if one has a toothache or a stomachache? Pure, clear moments of life, positive emotions, like guardian angels, will overcome pain and disease. But what if someone doesn't have enough pure and clear moments to arouse the positive healing emotions? What should he do then? He should create at once something to make them appear. They appear when people around you treat you with genuine love. So you must create a situation along those lines, create it by your actions in respect to those around you, otherwise your guardian angel will not be able to help you. I wonder whether I have ever had them myself, and if so, how strong they were. How does one call them forth? This can be done through reminiscing. For example, let us recall something good, something pleasant from your past. With the help of that image, try to feel the soft and pleasing state of mind you experienced back then. Do you want to try it now? I shall help you. Try it. All right, let's give it a try. Please, lie down on the grass and relax. You can remember starting from this point in your life right now, going back into the past. Or you can start with your childhood and proceed up to the present day. Or you can jump at once to the most pleasant moments and feel the sensations connected with them. I lay down on the grass. Anastasia lay down beside me and pressed her fingers against mine. I thought her proximity might prevent me from concentrating on my reminiscences, and I said, perhaps I'd better be alone. I shall be very quiet. When you start remembering, you will forget about me. And you will not feel the touch of my hand. But I can help you remember everything more quickly and vividly. Chapter 5. Where are you, guardian angel? The chronicle of my life story took me back to my childhood. My reminiscences continued up to the point where I was playing in the sand with the country kids and then broke of pound. At that moment my soul was overwhelmed with an inexplicable sense of alarm. Not a single event in my whole life aroused positive emotions or feelings comparable to those I experienced that morning after spending the night with Anastasia. Or with those that arose in me after she brought the rhythms of surrounding nature in tune with the beating of my heart. I described this experience in the chapter touching paradise. But I considered these marvelous feelings to be something created in me by Anastasia. They weren't my own. They were artificial, a gift from Anastasia. Involuntarily, I compared them with those of my previous life and found no analogy whatsoever. Again and again, I hunted down recollections of my life, as though running a movie reel, backward and forward. Everything I saw was related to my efforts to get or achieve something. Sure, I got what I wanted, one thing after another, but there was no great feeling of satisfaction. Instead, desire merely appeared. And the most recent years of my life, when those around me thought how splendidly everything was turning out for me, aroused an even greater feeling of confusion and chaos. The cars I had acquired, the women, the banquets, the gifts and congratulations I had received all seemed empty and pointless. I quickly got to my feet and said, with some irritation either to myself or to Anastasia, there are none of these healing sensations in man's life. At least, not in mine. And I would say there are many lives where they can't be found. Anastasia also rose to her feet and calmly observed, then you should create them as quickly as possible. What do I need to create? Tell me, what? First you must understand what holds the greatest meaning, or significance, for you. You have just been looking over your past life. But even with the opportunity to analyze it, to look at it objectively, as it were, you still were not able to notice what was really significant. You kept latching on to the usual values, as you saw them. Tell me the situations where you felt you came closest to a sense of happiness. There were 2 situations, but each time something prevented me from feeling truly happy in them. What kind of situations? Back in the early days of perestroika, I managed to acquire a long-term lease on a steamship. This was the best passenger ship in the Western Siberian River Fleet, the Mikhail Kalinin. After the lease agreement was drawn up, I went to the harbor and there she stood. What a beauty! I remember the first time I stood on the deck of my very own ship. And did your feelings of happiness greatly increase when you stood on the deck? You know, Anastasia, our lives are filled with all sorts of problems. As soon as I had climbed aboard, I was met by the captain. We went to his cabin and had a bottle of champagne together. During our conversation, the captain advised that all the water pipes needed cleaning at once, or the health authorities would not allow us to set sail. And there were other things he told me. And so, Vladimir, you immersed yourself in all the problems and cares involved in the running of the ship. Yes, that's right. There were a lot of them. It is inherent in the nature of artificially created matter and various mechanical devices, Vladimir, that they bring more problems than pleasures. Their benefit to man is quite illusory. Well, I don't happen to agree. Maybe in themselves, these mechanical devices have problems that need constant repair and maintenance. Still, they help us get a lot of things. What, for example? Even love. Genuine love, Vladimir, could not possibly be under the control of artificially created objects. Even if you owned all the objects in the world, you would not be able, just with their help, to gain access to the true love of even one woman. Well, you simply don't know our women. You're spinning theories, that's all. I managed to get it. What did you manage? Love. I quite simply succeeded. There was one woman I loved a great deal. I loved her for many years. But she didn't really want to go off with me anywhere alone. When I got my ship, however, I invited her aboard, and she accepted. Can you imagine how great that was? Here we were sitting alone at the ship's bar. There was champagne, first-class wine, candlelight, music and nobody else around. Here we were alone in the empty bar on my ship. She was the only one there with me. I had the ship set sail without taking on any other passengers, just so we could be alone. The ship proceeded down the river. There was music playing in the bar. I invited her to dance. Her figure was fantastic, especially her breasts. I hugged her tight, my heart was pounding for joy, and I kissed her on the lips. She didn't run away, she even hugged me back. Do you see? There she was right beside me, and I could touch her and kiss her. All this was because of the ship, and you say it can only bring problems. And then, Vladimir, what happened? Nothing much. Please try to remember, anyway. I tell you, it was nothing important. Can I tell you what happened there, on the ship, between you and that young woman? You can try. You had a lot to drink. You made a deliberate effort to drink as much as possible. Then you put the keys to your cabin, your luxury apartment, on the table in front of her, and you yourself went down to the lower decks. You slept almost 24 hours in the cramped crew's quarters. And do you know why? Why? The moment came when you noticed a strange expression on the face of that beloved young woman of yours, a preoccupied smile. Intuitively, even subconsciously, you realized that she, your beloved, was thinking how happy she would be if only it were her own beloved that was sitting across from her in this bar, instead of Megre. Your precious girl was dreaming of someone else, someone she really liked. She fantasized that it was he, and not you, who was master of the ship. You were at the mercy of inert matter, to which you had tied your living feelings and aspirations, and were choking them to death. Don't go on, Anastasia. I pleaded. These recollections aren't happy ones for me. In any case, the ship did play its role. It was thanks to the ship that you and I met. The happenings of the present are the result of previous feelings and impulses of the soul, and that determine the future. And it is only their momentum, only the beating of their wings, that is clearly reflected in the heavenly mirrors. And only their impulses and aspirations will be reflected in happenings here on the earth. What do you mean by that? I asked in some bewilderment. Our meeting may well be the culmination of many aspirations of the soul on both your part and mine, perhaps on the part of our immediate or even more distant forebears. Perhaps it came from a single impulse of the cherry tree growing in the garden of your country home. Only not the ship. What has the cherry tree in my garden got to do with it? In all your many glances back at your life, you failed to pay any attention to this cherry tree and your feelings connected with it, yet those feelings have played a leading role in your life in recent years. The universe did not react to your ship. Just think, what could a primitive, run-down material device, incapable of either thinking or restoring itself, possibly mean to the universe? But the cherry tree, a little Siberian cherry tree, which you could not even make room for in your recollections, excited the cosmic expanses and changed the course of time and history, and not only yours and mine. Because it is a living being, and, like all living beings, has an inseparable connection with creation as a whole.